Hello and welcome to the 2024 full moon walkthrough in Capricorn. I am your astrologer Cawnawyn and I am so excited to take you through this forecast. Today we'll be taking a look at the chart for the full moon in Capricorn on June 21st, and this is happening at 1 degree of Capricorn. If you are a subscriber of my Blue Hour newsletter, you will be notified first that this video has gone out, but I am going to start uploading these to the public just so everyone can benefit from the forecast. But if you are a subscriber, then you will be able to get these forecasts once they come out. So please consider subscribing to my newsletter if you haven't already, and you'll also get my Sabbath astrology as well as updates on my blog, my different podcast episodes, and discounts on my readings and classes. With that, let's jump into the forecast. So if we take a look at the chart, we're starting with it at 0 degrees Aries rising, which means that we are not going to be taking a look at the rising sign or any of the houses for this forecast. This is so that way you can make it applicable to yourself as well as the area that you live in and your transits. So for me, the full moon is happening at 6:08 p.m. Pacific time. I live in Seattle, Washington. If you go convert this time to wherever your time zone is, you'll get a chart with the different house systems, and then you can explore further on wherever the moon is happening for you in which house and how that might affect your greater community. And you can take a look at 1 degrees of Capricorn and 1 degrees of Cancer and see where that is in your own chart, what houses that is operating in, and then that will give you a better understanding of how the full moon is affecting you. But for simplicity's sake, we just deal with 0 degrees Aries, and let's talk about the aspects to the planets. So here's our full moon at 1 degrees Capricorn and Cancer. The sun is here at 1 degrees of Cancer, making its opposition. This is the opposing symbol to the moon in Capricorn. So if we take a look at this lunation, this is kind of an interesting one because when the sun is in Cancer, its ruler is the moon. But the moon right now is at its furthermost point away from the sun, so clear on the other side of the chart, as far away as it can be. And it's under Saturn's oppressive rule, Saturn being the ruler of Capricorn, where the moon is during this lunation. If we go over here and look at what Saturn is doing, it's operating in Pisces along with Neptune. And if we see here, this square symbol right here, the sun and the moon are making a square to Neptune. Now, they are not in an elemental square, so if the Neptune was like a little bit further into Aries, at 1 degrees of Aries, that would be an exact square by element. Also by the modality, right? Neptune is still in Pisces. It's just 2 degrees away from that 1 degrees of Aries. That would be an exact square. So while all of the signs here are not all cardinal, Neptune being in Pisces, which is mutable, because it's only 2 degrees of orb away from this, it still counts, and it might just operate a little bit friendlier or rather less overtly because it's in Pisces, another water sign. So we have water, water, and Earth. Now, if we rewind back to this full moon and the relationship, if we think about full moon energy, right, this is happening, this is the climax of our lunation cycle. So this may be a time where you're noticing that you're actually able to manifest and receive. This is usually a time of very heightened emotion, so all the crazy stuff is happening right with the full moon, and that can show up for yourself, but it can also show up in the form of relationships with other people. So just be aware that energy is really, really high. Please stay safe out there as always. And being in the Cancer and Capricorn axis, right? So this full moon happening here, we have the moon and Saturn as our rulers. And what I like about this is both the moon and Saturn are typically very reflective, and that they look back and they get nostalgic, right? Saturn is really associated with time, so it's always looking backward as well as forward. But in the case of Capricorn here, where the moon is, it's typically looking backwards to the past and saying, okay, what is tradition? What has structurally worked for us in the past? What lessons and wisdom have we gained from the past, and how can we let that strengthen and fortify us? Whereas the moon by nature is reflective, and so the sun being in Cancer is typically a more nostalgic placement for it. It is concerned with tradition, with family roots and upbringing, and so this whole full moon might be bringing to light those themes for you. Now, if we look at this Neptunian square we're having in the sign of Pisces with Saturn co-present, right? Neptune is associated with dissolving of things, and in Pisces, right, this is truly the ocean doing what it does best, eroding everything down. And Saturn really doesn't love that, being in Pisces, because Saturn is concerned about boundaries around constraints and structures and all things that give proper alignment to where we're supposed to be headed and the hierarchy of how we're supposed to operate. It's concerned with authority, all of the limitations, and ultimately, how do we take authority over oneself? So if it's stuck in the Piscean ocean, it doesn't really have a firm footing here. And so what is left of your structure, of your faith, when all has been eroded away, right? That is Saturn's big question in Pisces. And being co-present with Neptune, Neptune is saying, let's just dissolve away, let us escape, let us go beyond boundaries, we don't need them. We have unconditional love, we have fantasy, we have an imagination, we don't want to be constrained. But this moon is standing in a square aspect to it. So if we think about what the moon really is wanting in the sign of Capricorn, right? It has a sense of safety with those constraints, with those structures. Capricorn moon wants there to be some form of order, so that way it knows where best to operate and can operate most effectively. It can keep itself safe and protected. It can know what the unknowns are and plan better and accordingly. And so it feels like it can operate safely and like it can nurture itself because there's nothing that's left to question. But it's standing in this tough aspect to Neptune right now, which, by the way, Saturn and Neptune are about to go retrograde. So they're moving very, very slow, which makes them extra powerful right now. So these themes of Saturn, these boundaries, these constraints, these structures, and then Neptune, the dissolving all of that, the escape, the going into fantasy, the illusion, maybe the delusion that you're painting in front of yourself, those all might be really, really highlighted for you right now. Not to mention being in Pisces, this is adding really another spiritual tone into this. So having crazy dreams or psychic messages or contact from other realms, right? These are all things that could be happening for you. And this moon and this sun are not quite comfortable with that. But they're concerned with Saturn's energy. So there is a sobering effect to this. This might even feel really weighty or burdensome, right? The burden of whatever reality you're having to face while all of this is going on. So I just want to highlight this because this full moon is tough. And if you're looking back to sort of examine behaviors or problems, or perhaps it's just history of relationships that you're in and trying to piece together, well, where is the truth in that? It may be hazy and hard to discover because of Neptune's influence right now. But a few good things to highlight. So here we have Venus and we also have Mercury. They've just moved into Cancer together, in relationship together, and they have moved into Cancer with the Sun. So I look at this and I see they're lending this beautiful, charming, frankly, energy, right? When Venus and Mercury are together, this is Venus, all things we find beautiful and attractive, and Mercury, our mind, our communication, together working in the sign of Cancer. So promoting peace, promoting sanctuary, promoting nurturing and care for each other, and that divine, feminine, reflective, and receiving energy. So they're all together with the Sun, adding their support. And if we look here, this is a sextile symbol, this blue line, to Mars, which is in Taurus. And Mars in Taurus is an earth sign. Venus and Mercury and the Sun are all in a water sign. So what happens when we get a sextile and they're working in collaboration or relationship together that is successful, hopefully, but productive and collaborative? We get growth. We water the earth, we get growth. So I see this as a really great potential aid during this time. I would say lean on your friends, lean on your family, ask for those opinions, because right now the solutions you come together might look really, really attractive, or people may really want to help you and find that they can support you easily, and that your actions together can be fruitful and manifest something even greater. And even tapping into this Neptunian imagination, right? This can look like opening up to creativity as well. How can you creatively maybe make some solutions for this? So this full moon has a lot to offer. While it might feel tough or just weighty because of Saturn's influence, the last thing I'll make mention of is if we look up here, this is an inconjunct to Pluto. So this symbol right here, this is specifically known as a quincunx. So basically the Sun it has nothing in common right now with Pluto. Every time we have any planet entering any sign, it's going to talk to Pluto because Pluto's at the very early degrees of Aquarius. So we have the sun in a cardinal water sign, right? With like reflective or yin energy. And it's making this really awkward, like kind of annoying nuisance energy, like of relationship to Pluto, which is in an air sign, which is yang and like outward, and is in a fixed sign. So they have absolutely nothing in common. So I just wanted to make this evident because you might find that there's just a lot of noise going on right now. Maybe that's adding to all of this Saturnian weight and pressure that you're dealing with. It might feel like the world is like happening and you're like not even able to tap in because it's just too much to deal with. But remember that quincunxes this energy when we're presented with a relationship or something in our psyche or field that is so different from us. There's always an opportunity to learn. So you may be confronted with something that is a surprise or is a little uncomfortable or perhaps a nuisance, but there might be a grain of opportunity there to learn something, to open to something new, to a different perspective, maybe inviting that in from your relationships to gain a better understanding, a more clarified perspective on like, or objective perspective, right? Aquarius is detached energy, so it's not going to get brought into all the emotion that is the Cancerian like predicament of the soul. That Aquarian energy is willing to come in and look at things like a scientist and say, here are the facts. So that might be really beneficial. And as you can see here, this is it's coming into a sextile with Neptune. So we even have Neptune kind of assisting this, even though it's in square relationship to this. Remember that squares are not bad. They're activating, which can feel uncomfortable, right? When we're prodded to move somewhere. But that means that you can take your action, your energy, and work with Neptune. So how can you work with your imagination, your creativity, your psychic awareness? How can you work with that in order to highlight what is going on with this full moon relationship? Anyway, I hope this gives you a good idea of how to work with this full moon. If you want more information about this full moon, as well as the next Capricorn full moon we are having this season in Cancer season, because this is not the only one this year, please go listen to my Cancer season forecast on Bonfire Babble podcast under Cawnawyn's Corner. You can find out about both of my full moon forecasts, as well as the whole Cancer season. You can also check out my most recent Sabbath Astrology, which was for the summer solstice, where I talk a bit about this full moon, as well as some of the next upcoming transits we're facing in Cancer, as well as Leo season coming up. So lots and lots of astrology for you. And lastly, I wanted to just mention that for any of you out there interested, during the new moons, I am putting out my blog, especially for you pagan parents out there. The new moon in Gemini we just had, I'm talking about my double life as mom and astrologer. So please check that out if you are interested, and subscribe to the Blue Hour newsletter on my website if you want all of the latest updates with all my music and astrology that's coming out all the time. I thank you so much for watching, for participating, for sharing your time and your energy with me, and I wish you a life of joy and healing during this time of sanctuary of peace, and that you manifest a life of divine purpose and glory, for you are worthy and you are free. Blessed be.